This is Spinblade, a game I made for the
GMTK Game Jam.
And the main point of this video is making Spinblade into a mobile game. Now, I'm going to break this task into 3 steps. Step 1 is just some basic mobile compatibility, where I'm just going to try and get the game running well on mobile. Step 2 is some more general cleanup of the game, and I also want to add in a tiny bit more content. And step 3 is releasing it to the App Store. Now, I'm only going to do step 1 and 2 in this video, because that already took me 3 months, but eventually I will come back to Spinblade and do step 3. To get Spinblade running on mobile, I started by making a test build to run in a mobile simulation on Mac. So now it works in a simulation, but the next test is to actually get it on my phone, and it took a little bit of fiddling around, but I eventually got Spinblade working on my phone. But at the moment it's kind of impossible to open the shop, so I added in a shop button and also a bunch of other things that just made the game so much easier to play on mobile. After rebuilding onto mobile, it worked perfectly somehow, and I can now move on to fixing bugs and adding more content to Spinblade. The first thing I wanted to do was fix the horrendous scripts I have, and when I say horrendous, I mean it. Like, I'm surprised the game even ran with these. Okay, well, it mostly ran. The biggest script refactor I did was for upgrades. Before this change, upgrades applied the stats it had all in one script, which is 250 lines long and horrible to work with. To fix this, I made upgrades into a modular system, with scripts for each specific upgrade, with things like money upgrade, health upgrade, and enemy upgrade. I can then add as many of these modular scripts as I wanted onto an object, making it so much more manageable. I also did the exact same thing to clean up my enemy scripts. But while I was redoing some old scripts, I thought it would be nice to have some sort of way to have some scripts I could use in all of my games. So I made an entire Unity package with over 3,000 lines of code. So yeah, this package is one of the sole reasons this update took so long, since I wanted to add as many features as possible to this package. I called this package Unity Utils, and it did end up making development a little easier, but I didn't fully implement everything I added to Spinblade because that would have taken way too long. If you want to try this package for yourself, I'll leave a link to it in the description. I am also going to rework some major systems in Unity Utils before my next game, so that's going to be so fun. But using my new Unity package, I was able to add some cool animations to all the game's buttons. Ooh, fancy. And to make my game even fancier, I found this UI effects package, which allows me to add in some very subtle animations to my buttons, with my favorite effects being the shiny glint on the wind fragments, and this very subtle background animation on the upgrades. Ooh, even fancier. I also added in the button of immediate quality loss, which just toggles the CRT effect on and off, and hopefully with this, the bitrate on YouTube is not cooked anymore. Another cool visual change I made was what happens when you unlock a wind fragment, with everything slowly turning gold as you unlock more wind fragments. This was a thing before, but it only applied to the player saw, so I changed it to apply to practically everything the player owned. Another subtle but impactful visual change I did was adding in some simple scene transitions, which I think look very nice. The last major visual change I added was the stat text in the bottom right corner, which displays your damage, percent of upgrades bought, health, regen, and the amount of revives you have left. I also made a ton of other small visual changes, which would take too long to list, but they just improved the game's feel overall. But now, with the visuals done, I need to clean up the gameplay. The first change I made was removing infinite mode. Now I know some people like this mode, but I found it really annoying to work with, having to integrate it into so many scripts, so I removed it. This definitely made development easier, but it is sad to remove this mode. I will hopefully come back and re-add infinite mode in a much better way with a lot more content, but not in this devlog sadly. Now, the first thing I added was a bits converter upgrade, which converts $100 into 1 bit, which also scales with your bits multiplier, since I'd gotten some complaints that getting bits was difficult and you would have so much excess money late game, so I thought this was the only logical solution. I then did some upgrade balancing, with the most notable change being the exploding circle and mine upgrade branches getting condensed into just 3 upgrades each from their previous 5 or more, as I felt they were just way too long. I also added in a new event, and well, it's not really new, but it's actually an old event that I kept the code for, but didn't end up using until now. This event also isn't like the other events, and it actually doesn't have a negative effect on the player. This event actually increases the player's money multiplier for a short period of time. And the final change I did was adding in a new boss. But this boss doesn't actually have any gameplay changes from the first boss, it just looks visually different, and it definitely adds in some variety and looks pretty cool. Alright, well, that's the devlog. I didn't go over everything I did because that would have taken much too long, but this is a short overview of how I made version 3.0 of Spinblade. Soon I am going to start working on a new game, which I have mostly planned out, and also plan to release weekly devlogs of it, but I do want to come back to Spinblade and release it onto mobile. Before I release it to mobile, I do plan on doing another small content update, possibly adding back in infinite mode, and maybe even a save system, along with some other changes. If you want to see progress updates on my games, and possibly do some playtesting, you can join my Discord, link in description. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to like and sub for more peak.